God, I'm so glad I have you. It's like when Sean taught me how to use Control A. I didn't
This is
know
like a
that
month
was
ago or something too.
Yeah, it was recently. He was asking me to copy something for a document, and I was like dragging it, or I was like doing it, and I was clicking Shift at the bottom or something, and he was like, just press Control A, and I was like, what?
Skill set necessary to lead and strategize are completely distinct from those necessary for technical prowess.
When people say, do you need to know SEO to do copywriting? I'm like, no, because I don't even know what Control A is. So.
You don't even need to know how to do Microsoft Word.
Hello, everybody. Everybody, hello. Welcome to a Copy That Show, the only copywriting morning show featuring 4 people that takes place at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on the first Monday of every single month. The only one in existence. We have that particular niche completely locked down. I am joined today by myself, who is Sean. I am joined by Rod. I am joined by Alex, and I am joined by Luke. And we are ready to talk to you lovely people about copywriting. It's been a month since we talked with each other in an official capacity. What have you all been working on? What have you been experiencing? And what is going on in your copywriting trajectories?
This month has been a ton of fun for me because speech writing is really fun when things are really, really bad for the people you write for. And this month has just happened to have a fair degree of drama in my local politics. And so I've gotten to write a whole bunch of like speeches that have equated to diss tracks for various political figures in my community. Writing a diss track and then watching someone perform a diss track that then someone else has to stand there and listen to in public is so much fun. And that's been a lot of what I've been thinking about this month. It's almost like reverse copywriting, where it's, instead of getting someone to do a thing or feel really good about themselves, you try to make them feel like shit in front of a whole bunch of other people. And I don't usually get paid to do that. So getting paid to do that is like fantastic.
Where do you draw your inspiration for these, not diss tracks, but I guess as Warren pointed out, diss speeches?
There's probably some childhood trauma there. Everything I've ever wanted to say to someone that I have not been able to, because I am usually pretty polite. But no, more seriously, I think if we're thinking about this from a strategic standpoint, when you are writing any kind of copy or any kind of speech in which you are like accessing those negative emotions, it's really important to understand that you're doing that for a purpose. And so it was not the case that I wrote any of these things just kind of like try to pile on as much as possible, because that didn't change anything in a productive manner. Instead, I've been thinking about what sorts of appeals, because really you're appealing to an audience. A diss track doesn't work if only the person you're dissing hears it. So what sorts of appeals are going to resonate with them? What are things that people are already thinking that I can amplify? What sorts of ideas exist tangentially to those ideas people are already thinking that I could sort of inspire people to think about and then repeat?
I would feel very bad doing something like this.
That's because you have a conscience.
So, Luke, what have you been up to this last month, aside from like traveling the world and like taking everything over?
I mean, I guess like my work right now really is just doing lots of operations and like improving operations of a business. But one thing I've been doing is I've been trying to make my own business a little more anti-fragile. I'm basically sort of prospecting a couple more clients to do some side work for, to do some consulting with, just to make sure that I both grow as a business and to also just make my business more resilient and more persistent. So if one thing were to fall away, I can sort of lean on to the other things that I have. I won't go into the details there, mainly because it's classified for me to be able to do so. I do have some cool news. I don't know if you guys remember, but I was doing a bunch of SEO stuff for this big client of mine, where I sort of kicked out the old agency they worked with, and I sort of revamped the entire strategy. And that was, give or take, December, November-ish last year. And right now we're starting to see the results of that. So now about 3-4 months after that new strategy, we've doubled the traffic, the monthly traffic, and it's basically going up like that. And I kind of expect it to keep going. I don't know what the endpoint's going to be, but I think we might 5x the original traffic, maybe 10x the original traffic by the end of the year. What I'm actually going to do with that, and not just to sort of share my own successes here, is I'm thinking of writing some sort of case study and to write what I've really done for this company. And I'm thinking of sharing that with you guys, either on the Patreon or in the CC. just to give anyone who's interested in SEO, some more insights on how to like actually grow and how to significantly grow the traffic of a business or any website.
Alex, what have you been up to the last month?
Oh man, so I three main things. Hopefully this will be a kind of a quick summary of them. So one, I've been helping a SaaS enterprise SaaS business with their funnel, implementing that and making sure that the focus is there. Because as like Luke was touching on, a key word in marketing is focus, and you need all your channels to be working together. Because if you have, say, 3-4 different teams and they all have different objectives, then all of a sudden it breaks down. Not only is the front end marketing not working and traffic isn't going to the right places, but also internally, people just aren't sure what they should be doing, and it's a waste of time, and things get, money and effort gets wasted on creating just pointless stuff that is never going to be used, but someone has decided, oh, well, we might as well be doing X thing, like creating a brand guide. And it's like, why are you bothering creating a brand guide when there's not a funnel in place? You've got to look at your minimum viable product and what you can actually set up quickly to make that work. So been working with my most kind of recent client a lot on that. Two other things which I find really geeky and exciting. I've also been doing the beef jerky e-com store. That's going very well. I've actually got it now set for the end of March to start properly documenting it, because we decided to focus a bit more on the semi B2B side of it. It's more kind of negotiating with businesses about like distribution and how we can supply them and us taking a cut of it. So it's less about the marketing, more about kind of the back end deals. But the e-commerce site is up for that now. And I'm not touching it right now. I'm just kind of letting it run with, I think, something like £10 a day on Google Ads, so something absolutely minute. But the offer, I'm just kind of letting the offer be validated, which is happening, because with even, I think, £5, £10 a day in Google ad spend, we've been getting kind of like £20-40 in sales a day. The third thing I've been doing, other than the beef jerky and e-commerce, is I've actually been invited to join an agency as their marketing consultant, specifically for fast moving consumer goods, which are things like snacks and drinks and toiletries, so shaving equipment, for example. So I'm first of all just helping them kind of set up the agency and doing the page for them and writing it out for them, because I said, look, let me just write your effectively sales page for you and get down our own internal marketing strategy. And then with new businesses that come in, I'll just consult for them, focusing on what the clients that we're going to serve want and are interested in, and basically earning as much money for us as possible while also doing as little as possible. But yeah.
Pretend this is like the middle part of the show, the ad break, if you will. I didn't even talk about what I've been up to the last month, but it doesn't matter. After this part, then we're going to get into like the big questions that we wanted to dive in today. Is there anything that people should be aware of at this moment that would behoove them, benefit them, or that they should be consider doing at this particular point in the show?
I have no clue what you mean, Sean.
You don't think that people should be aware of, for example, a youtube.com/copy that?
Oh, sure. I mean,
but
yeah.
Do you think that they should also be aware of a patreon.com/the copy that show?
I think they should, yeah. I mean, like, if you go onto YouTube, you're going to find lots of videos about different topics about copywriting and marketing that was done before, which I think could be very useful for anyone who's new to whatever we provide here. So if they go on the YouTube, they can find other content similar to this that's going to be very beneficial to them. For anyone who wants just a little more exclusive content and a little more specific content, so not the bigger picture stuff, but like actually like, hey, here's how you can improve your copy, or hey, here are these like 30 mistakes that we often see people make. If that's what you're interested in, then I would say check out the Patreon that we have. We have a bunch of exclusive content there. You can see some of it like previewed, and if you see anything that you think is like, hey, this is what I'd like to have, you can get it for like $6 a month, and you can literally download everything if you want to and then leave, or you can stay, and every week you're going to get more of that.
Thank you, Luke, for giving everybody the hack of how to get all of our paid content for $6.
It's hell of a deal. It's patreon.com/thecopythatshow.
This past week, we just released a video in which our very own Sean McIntyre interviewed Mark Ford, of all people, like the Michael Masterson, Mark Ford that wrote all of the copywriting books that you guys are reading and studying from. That interview is up right now on YouTube for free for you to watch. It is not super long. It's 11 minutes long, the cut of it on YouTube. But there are at least $1,000 worth of advice, probably closer to $10,000 worth of advice that you will just like glean from that video, and it will greatly improve the way you think about like not just writing copy, but the role that copy fills within a business and how you should like think about copy now and what its role is going to be in the future. It is such a delightful interview. And there is an even longer version of that same interview up on Patreon. So if you sign up for $6, you can see the whole damn thing. And I would highly recommend all of you guys check that out.
Bonus for that video, you get to see Mark Ford react to his grandchild playing with a whoopee cushion like right by his ear.
And you don't really, I'm sorry, I'm going to try to get my granddaughters out of here. They've got a whoopee cushion that they're playing with. Liam, could you please bring the girls inside? I'm doing an interview outside. They were entertaining the listeners with whoopee cushion sounds.
He discussed what he thinks are the mistakes that like most beginner copywriters make, and like things that you shouldn't do. I really enjoyed that.
That I think operates as a good segue. A lot of what we do in general is like sort of peeling back the veil on like, you know, how we build our careers, how we're building our careers, how we're developing as copywriters ourselves. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you yourself had when you were first starting out? And what did you learn or experience that completely changed your mind about it?
The words that you use don't matter as much as the message that you're conveying. I would spend so long like just tweaking sentences to flow a particular way, or I would spend ages looking at synonyms online and being like, oh, how is like, this is what matters. It's the what I'm writing, you know, it's the actual words. I need to make sure that it sounds perfect. And it took me quite a while to realize that people who are reading it, as long as they're not being put off by how you're wording something, it doesn't actually matter what words you're using for a lot of the time. And I don't want this to get misconstrued as like, oh, right, we just write whatever, because that's not the case. But the point is, beginners definitely spend way too long thinking about the specific words and the sentence structure, and not enough time thinking about the message and how someone reading it is actually going to resonate with it. The turning point for me, Kyle Milligan's book is called Take Their Money. I believe it's still called Take Their Money, was a big part of me understanding that. What he teaches in that book is what so many other copywriting books do teach and touch on. I think he kind of hits the nail on the head with that, because he talks about treating copywriting almost as its own language. And that for me was a really, really handy concept in understanding it. Even if there are parts of the book that don't like resonate with you, even if you're not writing sales letters, for me, the big takeaway from that was it's not the words you use, it's what you're saying to someone. It's what they perceive it to mean.
You know, I came from, I got a bachelor's degree in like English and philology and continental philosophy. Then I got a master's degree in the same thing. Then I got a master's in fine art and creative writing. And so I had, how should I say, hashtag opinions about what good writing was. I got into financial publishing, really started, putting stuff out there and getting responses back and getting feedback from other people that had way more experience writing to be read, because there's like a novel, it's written to be read, but it's always going to be meant to be read by a certain kind of person, a person who's going to be interested in that sort of thing. Whereas, if you're writing in copy, you're writing for a much more mass audience than, say, a novelist or a poet or a short story writer or an essayist. For that reason, if you're writing for a mass audience, the qualities that make writing good, there are none. And there are qualities that make writing good only in context. The qualities that make a good sales letter for a specific audience, for a specific kind of product, at a specific time, those qualities are going to be different from the qualities that make a sales letter good that, serve a different list, that serve a different product, that serve a different level of awareness, that serve a different time. Really, like the rhetoric, the persuasive aspects, what is being communicated is effectively the same, but effectively communicating it, well, it constantly changes depending upon innumerable variables. And that was the biggest misconception that I had to overcome, that there's no such thing as good writing. There's only good writing for that thing?
I came into copywriting with similar opinions. Because I am more new, I still hold on to many of those opinions about what constitutes quote unquote good writing. But I do think that that is something that people you just have to get over it. One of the very first pieces of copy that I read and that I saw people talking about was End of America. End of America, for those of you who don't know, is like a 100-page-ish sales letter in the form of a book that describes how Obama's ruining America and this is the time to buy shit, yada, yada, yada. Massively successful, great thing. When I saw people talking about it, I read it, it was like, okay, I kind of get it. This was at a point in time in which people were, usually pirating shit or didn't have access to it. And so people were looking at a very specific PDF of it. And in this PDF, the very first time the author writes Obama, he misspells his name. And I forget what it was exactly. It was like maybe like OBOMA, whatever. But he misspells it. People started to have a conversation about why it was that he did this. And so we get into like these huge arguments about, his target audience doesn't respect Obama, therefore misspelling his name is like as little as subtle, call out to them, yada, 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 building solidarity with this group, blah, 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 blah. And I think at some point, it might be you, Sean, someone else came in, it was like actually a physical copy of End of America. And in it, Obama's name is spelled correctly. And so it ended up being the case that it wasn't misspelled at all, but people like went from that misspelling and just were like, oh yeah, it's 17,000 different reasons that this was done intentionally because it's just some big brain copywriting. And it was in that moment that I realized like none of this, like so little of the actual writing stuff matters because no matter who you are, you're able to extrapolate some shit from it. Like it's catcher in the rye.
It's like stop listening to the people, listen to the market.
What makes something work is always going to be impossible to determine. You can come up with plausible explanations, but no matter how experienced you are, it's always going to be a matter of what you think, opinion, like perspective.
It took me like sort of on average like 50 clients to get 5 good clients where I'd be like, okay, these are people that I like to work with and that can pay me good money for what I do. That, I guess, average that I was hitting kind of gave me the belief that like it's very hard to find good clients and it's very hard to find good money as a copywriter because obviously doing 45 projects for clients that end up not paying you so much and end up trying to exploit you, it's really like a nice, like a nice view to have, I guess. What I had to overcome and what I learned was that it's not always your skill that matters, but like it's how good you are at prospecting and identifying the right clients that could make you a lot more money. So in my case, improving my own like sales ability and improving my sort of like identification radar for like bad clients really, really gave me a lot of progress. There is a lot of good money to be made in copywriting, even though right now it might seem for you there's not a lot of good money to be made because there are a lot of bad clients. But the better you get at prospecting and the better you get at sales, the more you'll see that there are lots of good clients who are willing to pay you good money for the value that you deliver to them.
I think as you start up as a beginner, you do kind of wonder, have I been missold this promise of being able to make money in copywriting? And the truth is, you probably have been missold it by the person who originally told you because they just wanted you to buy a course. That's the reason a lot of people then have such a mass disillusion with copywriting because they go, oh, right, it was just a complete lie. But I think what Luke said there is so poignant that there are, and believe me, I can't believe how many times I've experienced this, there are companies and clients who just have marketing budgets that they need to get rid of. The two best kind of clients are either people who have really invested in their own company and are willing to pay for quality to actually make it good, or people who have fixed marketing budgets and don't give a shit. All right, those are the two best people you can work for. I would think, man, no one is going to pay me just for my bit of knowledge on copywriting. Now, I realize that just by fulfilling these things that clients and prospects care about, so for example, creating a messaging guide for their brand, that is not what I would call copywriting as such, because I'm just telling them, right, well, here's the kind of messaging you need to do. Here are some examples of posts and pages for you, which it's not direct response, right? That's just creating like some kind of brand profile for them effectively. But we've already had experience with companies paying upwards of $5,000 okay, so say like $7,500 for that, because they trust you as an agency, as a copywriter, to go, they know what they're talking about. Just because you are seeing shitty clients now and you're just kind of being, strapped to some Upwork projects, once you have done your due diligence and you've paid your dues basically in trying to get past that level of doing those shitty jobs, and once you start networking, you realize that there are companies and people who will pay a lot of money for stuff that you go, should I really send this invoice? Because it feels a bit disingenuous of me to charge this much. The more that you put yourself out there, the more that you will realize, okay, there are people willing to pay good money for things that I can do. And on some occasions, pay good money for things that do not take me a lot of effort to do. Moderation, really. Like, don't get so taken in by, I'm going to earn 6 figures in the next 2 months. But similarly, don't get disheartened by, oh, there's just a bunch of shitty projects going on Fiverr and Upwork. Because there is that happy medium where you go, all right, there is actually a really nice playing field here once I have that network in place.
I call it like sales letter mindset. Sales letters tend to be more considered. You're walking through people through a whole bunch of steps. And I know that when I started out, every other piece of kind of copy that I would write, I would think, okay, I need to walk people through every single step to get them to the idea, because if I don't do that, then they won't understand. You can do some things for all people, you can do all things for some people, but you can't do all things for all people. And so just developing the understanding that, like, when you're writing a piece of copy, you should have a specific audience with a specific intent that is like manageable with the constraints of that, whatever the medium is. And so if you're writing a Facebook ad, don't try to introduce a product to somebody and then sell it to them with a buy 2 get 1 free deal the first time they're seeing that, because your copy gets really jumbled because what you're doing is jumbled. It doesn't actually make sense.
Writing is contextual. And what makes good writing good is absolutely contextual.
It costs too much money to try and educate the public on any point. You're not trying to bring people around to a way of thinking. You're just meeting them where they're already thinking and showing them that you're supporting that way of thinking already. What you're thinking about there is educating a huge group of people as to why they need a product that they don't currently know they need. Like, you need to be starting with a problem people already know they have, because people don't care if you say, hey, you're going to have this problem in the future. Like, they don't care about that.
What is something that you did in the course of your career that you completely fucked up? And either how did you fix it, or how did you pick up the pieces afterwards? I will start. God knows that I have, I think, messed up more and in a bigger way than anybody else, like in this current Zoom call, in this current stream. Early in my career, I was assigned to write a hefty report for a product that was owned and put out by Mark Ford's Michael Masterson's franchise. And it was like a big series of info products. And one of them was called Extra Income Opportunities, basically side hustles, a series of reports about side hustles, businesses that you can start on your own. I was basically given free reign to work with freelancers and basically hire them to work on these reports. In the course of brainstorming these reports, I was thinking okay, what are some ways that people can make money? That was the beginning of my incorrect path. I spent thousands of dollars of the company's money hiring freelancers to produce a report about collecting and profiting from scrap metal. And I remember after this was published and sent out to people who had spent $2,000, $2,500 or more to be part of this club, and they just got a report about how they can make a little extra scratch by collecting extra scrap on the side of the street. And I remember being in a company meeting. There's maybe 20 people in this conference room. Mark Ford called in and he said, before we talk about any of that, who the fuck put out this scrap metal thing? It was so weird. Who did that? You could just see the color drain from everybody's face, because Mark Ford, when he's mad, his fingers on the button of time to start firing whole departments. Everybody's just quiet for it's only 2 or 3 seconds, but you feel those 2 or 3 seconds. And I just leaned forward and chimed in and said, that was me. I approved it. It was my idea, soup to nuts. That was me. There's just a pause on the line, and still nobody in this conference room is talking. Mark was just okay, well, maybe talk to me next time. you think to put something like that out. And that was the end of it. And ultimately, that only boosted my career because it proved to everybody in that room, and it proved to Mark Ford, that I was honest and willing to admit and take ownership of mistakes. I would say that where I first went wrong, though, in that whole process was thinking about, like, what are some ideas for scrap metal? Like, for example, you know, Luke, Rod, Alex, if somebody hired you to write a listicle about ways to make money, that would probably be your first thought, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Think about ways to make money. Think about opportunities to make money. That's the task, right? No, that is not the task. You have to think about ways people want to be making money. And that distinction is the difference between something that will get you reamed out by one of the legends of copywriting versus something that will actually produce something that not only people want to read, but people want to buy.
I don't feel like anything I've done has been that bad.
That's why I started first, because I wanted to, like, just rip the Band-Aid off and be like, listen, nothing you guys have done will be as bad as some of the shit that I have done, and still manage to make a successful career out of.
I was working with a company I am working with a company that is like virtual therapy. And so they wanted to, you know, do direct to customer. They want to partner with institutions, and they want to partner with companies that might provide services for institutions who have like study abroad programs for students, that like those kids can have access to mental health services while they're abroad. Lots of different kinds of people that they are thinking about when they are trying to do their marketing. They brought me on to start with a couple different pages, but to eventually write for all of those audiences. And when we're first kind of breaking down what we're going to do, we decided to start with like the homepage and then do a couple of different landing pages just so they can have places to start driving traffic and to link people who they're doing direct outreach to. I'm like, okay, cool, great. I think this is a great plan. And so I go off, I start writing, I shoot them my drafts. I wake up to an email from not the person who I was talking to, but some of like her partners. And they were leaving comments that were like, this seems like completely off. I don't think we want to go with this angle, yada, yada, yada. Basically like, how did you miss the mark by this much? And it turns out that I had just written for the wrong audience. I misunderstood what she was asking for in our call. And so I wrote an entire landing page for just the wrong people. That kind of sucked because they wanted to like start using that immediately to start their campaign. And I was like, holy shit, my bad. And so I just ended up rewriting it. It was one of those moments where I was like, okay, this sucks. I have 3 different people saying your stuff sucks. Kind of like you, Sean. I was like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I just misunderstood what you said. That's my bad. I will fix it immediately, and just pull an all-nighter to make sure that they had it ASAP.
Especially when you're starting out, you're going to mess up a lot. You can avoid some stuff, but you can't avoid it in general. Really what matters most is what you do after. Realize that it doesn't reflect badly on you as a person and your self-worth and what have you. That really it's just a function of like, you're a machinist operating a lathe. And sometimes the thing that you're trying to lathe comes out a little wonky. And you send it to quality control, and quality control sends it right back. That doesn't make you a bad lathe operator. Most people don't even know what a lathe is. It just means that you have to lathe it differently. You have to machine it differently to appeal to not only the end audience, but also to the person who's in charge of looking at your stuff and paying you money. No mistake is ever so catastrophic that you can't either fix it or learn from it. And that's all there is to it.
Even when you feel like you're clear on what the thing is, you should just ask more questions, because more information will never hurt you, but having not enough information may lead you astray.
I don't really think I've had any really major fuck-ups, because I like to play it safe. When I do new things, I like to make sure that whatever I do, I have a pretty high chance of succeeding. I'm very much an incremental gains type of guy, rather than like, let's try these grandiose things that I'm most likely going to fail at. But sort of like early as a copywriter, when I was really studying a lot of sales letters and a lot of copy, and I thought that I knew copy very well, or at least I thought I knew the principles of direct response really well, I had a client who then gave me a pretty big job, which was like a 5K job. And I was like, holy shit, this is like so cool. I can do this. And like, I probably put in like 20 hours of like preliminary drafts. And I just had this, like, I ticked all the direct response boxes. I cared about like the emotional triggers. Like I took their attention like for the prospect, and I was like, damn, this is really good. And then the client just completely told me like, I don't want to sound like this. I want to sound like some major brand. and completely ripped it apart and then decided and wanted me to completely redo it. At that point, I simply said to myself, I'm not going to waste any more time with this. And I immediately fired my client, because before that, I've had similar clients like that. And I know that this process can be very drawn out and be very, very long and take you like 10 revisions. And then if you're being paid even 5K, it's not going to be worth spending $100 on. So I just decided, bye-bye. The lesson that I learned out of that was to balance what the clients want and what would be good for the customer.
So recently, before this new year, I was working with a gluten-free brand who had like this specific snack bar on retail, like doing some retail help with them, which was going to shops. And then they said, we want to go online. And I was like, yeah, well, obviously that's my specialty, so I can help with that. I sunk about 4 or 5 months of time, not like solid time, but of a good, say 10, 15 hours a week into getting the messaging, doing all the research, setting everything up. And we had a launch, we built a list, we had a launch, the launch was quite good. And then it just completely fell off. And I was like, why is this falling off? And I kind of just realized, I was like, I totally miscalculated how many people would be willing to just go on one website for one product, which is just like a gluten-free snack bar with no other range. So even though there was a problem, and even though we had the messaging was spot on for the audience, and we had really good engagement as it were, and really good feedback, when we actually dove into why people stopped ordering, they just said it's just too much hassle to go on the website and order just for this one thing. Even to subscribe and have it come weekly, it just isn't worth it. Like the product isn't good enough for it. And I sunk loads of time into building and to get my team to build out all the functionality of subscription stuff and done all the messaging and all the research. And then we had to close it. And I had to say to the client that I can't keep working on this. I don't have enough time to make this work. And I just had to take that as a loss.
We've been going for 94 minutes. It has been a delightful conversation. I think it is time to close up the show and avoid in the past what we've done, which is just keep talking for 2-3 hours.
Dear audience, lovely audience, beautiful audience, thank you for joining us today. This has been Copy That, the one and only copywriting morning show, the only morning show you will ever need, except for all the other mornings that we do not do this show. If you would like to join us again, we would be happy to have you on the first Monday of the month, every month. Next month, that means it will be April 4th. It will be next time we'll see you live. But if you don't think you could make it that long without seeing us, you can find us every week on youtube.com/copythat, where we post new videos, whether that's interviews with literally legendary copywriters or video guides that we've been making, or just updates about our life, or all sorts of tools, tricks, and hacks to make you a better copywriter. If you need even more of us than that, you can get that by going to patreon.com/thecopythatshow, where you can get access to our Discord, where we are just always there. We literally do not leave, which means that you can ask us questions. You can post comments, concerns. You can post copy that you like so that we can critique it. But also we have longer uncut versions of these episodes of interviews with people like Mark Ford, Daniel Throssell, with whom we're at war, and even more guides and stuff like that to make you a better copywriter. And if you're super, super, super like us, you can sign up for a mentorship program where you will get one-on-one coaching from all of us. It's honestly a steal. I don't know why we still offer it. We should probably stop. But before we do, you should sign up so you can still have access to it.
I think you should be in charge of closing out the show from now on, Rod. We love you. Go make that money. Go secure that bag. And hit us up with any questions that you may have. Take care.